Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast, where today I have two lovely ladies, and this is going to be part of the female empowerment series, and actually very apt subject, empowering others. And it's going to be super cool to delve into us working with clients, things that we've come across ourselves, because we're all coaches and competitors, and just going across all different areas of life of how we empower others and things that have probably worked for us as well, you know, when people have had input into our own journey. So thank you, Tyler and Steff, for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And yeah, great to be back.
Yeah, awesome. So maybe for the listeners, we give a bit of a brief overview, both of you each, as to where you're at now, you know, who you work with, that type of stuff, before we go into some real life experiences and sort of fictitious people that we could talk about empowering them if they're coming across certain obstacles. So who wants to go first?
I'll take the lead. I'll break the ice. So my name's Tyler, and I work with quite a variety of clients. For myself, I'm an athlete. I compete in bodybuilding, and it's something that's where my heart is. It's what got me into fitness at the very beginning. So my heart's very strong towards anyone that's competing or has thoughts about reaching that big goal of getting on stage for the first time. But I do work with quite a variety of clients, like I said, ranging from complete beginners, people that have just completely lost track and they've hit a point in life where they're ready to make a change. Maybe they haven't got a gym membership. So it's actually getting them very first stepping stones back in place to get healthy habits in place, actually break gym anxiety and get into a gym. And then my other clients, that I work with is athletes, and that is first-time competitors up to people that's competed, 6, 7, 8 times. And last year I managed to take one of my clients to the Worlds in Italy. So yeah, it's quite a variety, and among all of those clients, we each face different problems, different struggles that we have to face.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Like, I think sometimes for our own journeys as competitors, we can relate to a lot of things, but there's still things now that come up and it's like, it's a new scenario, and then it's using what we've experienced as coaches and competitors to almost come up with the best scenario to help people. Like you say, sometimes it's just getting in a gym, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Steff, over to you.
So yeah, I mean, Tyler, we probably have a lot of things in common there with what you've just said, but I've been a coach in the industry for 15 years. My speciality really is working with athletes who are perhaps at the beginning stages of their careers as a fitness professional and are looking to take that off in a variety of different ways, whether that's for stage or whether that's to start to transform their body into that more muscular frame, perhaps for a photo shoot, and I'm sure we'll talk about that as a way of rebuilding their confidence or building their confidence. I find that a lot of my clients come or find themselves in the gym because they're maybe coming out of a place where their self-esteem has been very low and they're looking to rebuild themselves physically, but more mentally also. And that kind of connection between the physical and the mental is really what then drives that enthusiastic response to go off and do a goal such as a contest prep or something like a holiday or a photo shoot. The other side of my clients sort of rostra is more of the body transformation athlete or client, if you want to call it that, from starting complete beginners right through to working with pro level athletes. And that's not necessarily just for the stage either. That's taking athletes through that process, but then maybe finding out that this isn't actually fulfilling me fully, and I want to then pivot that to something more holistic, more fulfilling as a whole, and essentially then finding what strong and fierce women doing the gym but also having a killer body is, not just necessarily for something as stringent as a stage goal. So a real myriad of clients my end, a lot of different experiences, and I think the topic that we're speaking about today is so important, because I think a lot of females particularly, we get sucked into this idea of going down one route and it could be at the sacrifice of our well-being. So there's a lot I'm sure we'll talk about on that today.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I love what you just said there with, particularly, of course, we have a lot of competitors listen to the pod, and sometimes it's that you might do a prep or even start a prep and then you find out actually it's not for you. And I always try and say, that's okay. You don't have to go to stage. You can still, like you said there, Steff, look good, have a killer body, but you don't have to go to stage, because of course that's the extreme, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I think more people are sort of starting to learn themselves through the process of prep, and that's a big part of that's due to the education we've now got. There's so much more information out there now about what contest prep is, and setting that expectation from the very start. This is a very difficult, extreme goal. Are you ready? Are you prepared for that? And even if you are ready and prepared for it, it doesn't mean to say that maybe midway or even close to the start that doesn't have to change and evolve into, actually, I'm not sure if I want to go as extreme as that. And we can move that into something else, like a shoot, like a holiday, like a anything really that helps them still channel and focus very energetically their physique goals, that drive and focus that a prep gives us, without the element perhaps of, actually, this is taking away the other things from my life I didn't anticipate was going to be such a big thing for me. These are some of the things that might come up. And I'm seeing that a lot more now. Before, a lot of people used to just like jump into the prep and at all costs go for the prep. You know what I mean? Whereas now, I think a lot more women, particularly, we're making more smart choices based on how we feel. And what's going on in our body, actually, from a sort of just a psychological and a physiological perspective. And we're not afraid to put the brakes on when we actually need to now, rather than feeling like, what are they going to think or what's going to happen? No, what's right for me? And I think that's a lot of what we'll go into here.
Yeah, for sure. Tyler, do you have similar circumstances as well when you're speaking to people about going into a prep?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to cover a few foundations before taking a client through the prep process. As Steff was saying there, are you prepared for this? Because it isn't easy. And the last thing we want to do as a coach is kind of put someone in a prep when actually they've maybe got life things going on, maybe the relationship isn't great, the financial situation isn't great, and that's just going to knock their confidence further and further down to the point where it completely puts them off competing altogether. And that's not what we want. We want to ease them into it so that they can do a prep if that's what their goal is, and actually enjoy that process and grow as a person and an athlete in that as well.
Yeah, because of course, as we all know, in a prep, it can uncover certain things mentally that, if you're not in a good spot, like you touched on there, Tyler, at the start of a prep, how is that going to go as the prep goes on? How's that going to go into the reverse out? All of the different things that are associated with bodybuilding anyway, with the food, with the training and all of these things. If you're not in a good spot at the start, it's going to potentially make that worse. And it's a hard one because a bit like what you touched on there, Steff, everyone was just like, I'm doing a prep at whatever cost. But then it's now where you've got that option to do something like a photo shoot. Like, it's super, super cool that we have these options now. And like you say, the education's there. It's like, do you need to go to the extreme levels depending on where you see the sport going? And for us, managing expectations as coaches. And something I actually wanted to ask you both is, if you do have a client that, may not be competitive in bodybuilding and they just want to get on stage, is that something that you still try and pursue with them? Or Tyler, in your example, would you say, look, let's just nail the basics first and then see how it goes?
That's a really good question. And I would say my advice with that would be that it's very client specific.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to lay out what that client's hoping to achieve, and also the pros and cons that's going to go with that. And I think as a coach, it's your duty to be completely honest and give them the best route to achieving that goal, whether that be actually you maybe need to. I've had people come to me on over 1,000 calories and want to do a competition prep for a girl to compete at just over 1,000 calories to then go into a prep would just have no more room really to maneuver. And that, you know, one, it's not good for your health to do that without working them calories up. And two, again, it could put that client off from competing, and we want them good experiences to keep coming. So it's very much person dependent, I would say.
Yeah. And what about you, Steff?
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely person dependent. I think I've got a couple of people in mind that I can think of right now on my client roster that are very novice to this. That, you know, I could, and I have had the conversation with them where, right, let's give it a couple of years. Let's just, you know,
Yep.
pull it back a little bit. But for them, their why isn't about winning. It's not about getting the trophy. It's not about, you know, it's not doing that. For them, it's the trial. It's the, can I pursue and tackle a challenge so out with my comfort zone that actually gives me the confidence to really do something I've never done before. And I do challenge that question with clients when they come to me, because, you know, all right, I get that, but this process is, you know, it's everything, you know, it's all consuming in every level. And you touched on it there, Tyler. You know, financially, you're limiting your time with your family. You're perhaps missing out on social events. You're certainly going to face a few inner demons that you're going to come up against, because you don't then have those nice things that we as humans go and seek when we're in a time of need. You know, food. I won't go into others, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, I think everyone has their different reason why, but for the two that I can think of, they have this real passion and energy to connect with something that's difficult. So slightly contradicting what I said before, where, you know, you might find you come into this and then you realize, oh, put the brakes on, this isn't actually working for me. There is also the opposite mindset, which is somebody who's like, no, I want to do this, and I'm going to do it because I have to prove to myself that I want to, you know, take hold of something as hard as this and follow it through to the end. So there's a different psychology there. And you have to, as a coach, sort of almost view that client and really what's real tenacity and discipline and focus, and what's the want to be disciplined and focused. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like the two different things. And so, yeah, for me, there's a couple of people that I know they want to do this and follow it through to the end and stand up there and go, I did this. And that's for them all they want. And so I'm happy to channel that energy into getting them up there for that purpose. But
I think
know
that's
why.
really useful.
Yeah.
I think that is so good to do that.
Yeah. So everyone's, like you say, it's so dependent. Everyone is so uniquely different. And who, you know, the different types of people that come into this, Sarah, we've spoken about this before, you know, like the variety of backgrounds and people that come into this world of fitness and want to take hold of something like a prep or a photo shoot, etc. It totally is amazing to me. You know, one of the people I'm talking about, and I should probably listen to this, is she's in the army. She's got 2 children. She's transformed her body back from giving birth, but she's on the treadmill every morning and her child's like in her arms. She's on her check-in. She's like, guys, I'm here. It's fine. And she's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But this is something so unique for her. She's never done anything like this before, and she's just so disciplined and focused, ready to go. So yeah.
And I guess that like risk reward, because again, as coaches, you know, being upfront and honest, and I'm sure you guys do the same when you do consult with someone that's considering this journey, it's laying out, okay, you know, especially when you get to the tail end of a prep, there are implications for, you know, it's extreme health wise, all of these things. And I think if someone knows that, and like you say, Steff, you know, they're like, I just want to get on stage, it can be such a phenomenal thing, and they may not do it again, you know, or they may continue to do it. But if we outline those risks, those rewards, and give everyone, you know, the information as to what a prep takes, it is, like you say, person dependent. And if someone goes, fuck it, I'm all in, then we can't take that away from them, you know.
Yeah. Sometimes when that fire starts, you have to keep adding fuel to that fire, otherwise it goes out.
Yeah. And the skills that you learn when you do attach to a goal and you go all in, you know, you learn so much about yourself, and you learn so much, you learn so many, you know, we're creatures of habit. We like structure. Humans like structure. And if you've never had structure and then you try something like this, you suddenly realize, oh, hang on, my time is so much better mapped out. My time management skills are better. I'm managing to juggle this and this, and I never could do that before. Yeah. But I've managed to, you know, get things kind of slotted in that I never imagined I could. So there's like things that come out of the focus and the discipline that prep can then transfer into other areas. And I think that's something worthwhile. You might not see it whilst you're in it, but you certainly do when you get out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. And have you guys had experiences with any clients that have started a prep and then you've had to empower their decision to step away from a prep if they've had to pull out?
I have not had that experience yet. There is a client who I've been working with actually quite recently, and when she was looking at her kind of her stage presence and how she presented herself on stage, she done absolutely amazing. But she wasn't satisfied with the look that she brought. She knew that she could give better. The placing, that wasn't the goal for her. Her goal was to be better than she competed last year, and she feels like she let herself down. And it was actually a really difficult conversation, because as much as I can see that potential in her, I don't want to be that person forcing someone to do something when that's not aligned with their goals and it's going against, you know, is that, are we losing the love for bodybuilding here? You know, is this maybe not the goal anymore? Is actually competing, is this damaging your confidence further? Mm-hmm. So we had to spend quite a long time on the phone, you know, discussing, you know, is this process for you? You know, what are you going to gain from this? And actually, she loves the process, she loves the prep, she loves the dedication. It requires every part of it, but it was just the nerves got too much. So it's just getting on top of handling nerves and anxiety, which actually to work on these is such a strong thing to work on. And for her to then, she's going ahead with the show and competing in 2 weeks. And I honestly think that she's going to come out of this so much stronger, because she's fighting back with anxiety, she's fighting back with fear, and this is where you really grow, when those reasons are true to yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And it's such a, like we've already touched on, it's such a evolution of your mind, I guess, when you do a prep. And any of the journeys we've spoken about, even going for a photo shoot prep, like you can learn so much. And I love what you said, Steff, about the discipline you learn, time management and things like that. Like when you're in a prep, you can't take your foot off the gas. You've got to fit so many tasks in one day. So you have to learn the skill of time management, of keeping on track with everything. And that evolution there goes across to, like you say, Tyler, things like confidence in yourself, getting on stage and doing your posing practice, all of these things. People have never even looked at this type of thing in their life, and then suddenly they're in a bikini and they're doing a posing lesson, things like that. It's such a cool thing to empower people, isn't it, and give that self-confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And Steff, have you had anyone that's hit that point in prep where it's like, I'm gonna pull out?
Yeah, I had a girl really recently, actually, and this is someone I've done 2 off seasons and a prep with before, so she's coming into her next one. And she's fab. I mean, she's like, she's the kind of competitor. As a coach, I'm like, don't give up. You're so good. You're gonna literally smash it. And you can see just the phenomenal, you know, the way she could, where she could go. And she knows this. Like, I would say this all to her face, but she has. So you were talking about environment, you know, sort of your environment a minute ago, Tyler. You know, the other things that are going on in your world. So had a family sort of illness in the family that transpired in a house move, a job change, and a lot of like, why am I doing this right now? You know, those like questions like popping up. And we put down the dates to begin the prep, and I could sense some hesitation, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like let that go for the next couple of weeks, check-ins and see how we go. And I could just sense the trepidation, even whilst not on the check-in. I could just sense like she's over there thinking, oh, I don't know about this. And I just jumped on a call, and I think this is where the coach needs to maybe get a little bit more personal with it. You know, a video check-in might not be able to have that deeper conversation with the client, where you realize, okay, hang on a sec, like, why do we want to do this? Is this the right thing for you? And that call allowed her to open up about why she's actually thinking, I don't know if I can do this right now. And it's not the right time. And she wants to get things, you know, leveled out before she's in a place to go again. And whilst we both know she would do extraordinarily well this year with the improvement she's made, there is absolutely no pressure on anyone to do a contest prep. And my job was to obviously completely understand that. And I, like you, Tyler, would never, ever force a prep on anyone. I'm a firm believer in you naturally come to wanting to do it. And then that allows for much more positive, healthy contest preparation or goal, whatever goal that is. Yeah. So from my perspective, it is a challenging conversation, but it's one that you want to help them figure it out themselves rather than you say, right, we're going to do this or this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then you just support them with that. And then you look forward to say, well, the stage is there. We'll come back to it. And right now, let's go and focus on making sure life is balanced.
Yeah.
And train with integrity and focus and discipline still, but we can come back to that.
Yeah, it's like when you touched on earlier, Tyler, with laying down the foundations first. This sport is so popular now, and I think that people see it on Instagram and things, and they're like, I'm going to jump in, I'm going to, you know, get on stage, and maybe, you know, they haven't even started tracking macros or, you know, things like this. And then it's like, hold up, let's just look at the fundamentals of bodybuilding first. And an ideal opportunity, of course, is to maybe take someone into a maintenance or even a growth phase before a prep. We don't always get that opportunity, of course. And if someone comes to you and they say, look, all good, I want to go into a prep, then, you know, you may go down that route. But having that contact, building that trust, getting the fundamentals in place, and empowering them to make better decisions, empowering, you know, habit building, all of these things, I think is sometimes overlooked with things like social media and the stuff that we're, I guess, exposed to as people in this day and age, you know.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And I am seeing quite a lot of focus on kind of what skills are doing. And it's even something I see so much in check-ins, and I know you two will as well, you know, that drive of what, and I've struggled with it myself. What I am this number on the scales, when actually we're so much more than that. And I think, you know, finding things that, you know, you can progress with and aim higher towards, like personal bests in the gym, like getting stronger, like getting fitter, like these are things that measure our progress, not just that number on the scales.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it, Steph? We've spoken about this before. Like, it's unbelievable how you can exhibit these behaviors, which, I mean, sometimes there's an underlying thing there, you know, maybe disordered ways of thinking around food or your physique and all of these things, and then that's exhibited more in a prep, say. Or you can get into bodybuilding and this sort of obsession with the scales comes from wanting to progress, because it's often that the client cares so much that they have that vector and they go, like you say, my identity is this number on the scales today. And we could probably delve into that actually, about, you know, empowering people to look a bit more outside of scale weight, particularly in a prep, well, and even pushing up into an off season.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I always say to my guys is, no one knows what your weight is on stage.
Amen.
So the weight is arbitrary. So like, it's a tracking tool. And I always try to deflate it, right? I try to take the drama off the scale, because yes, we need to use it as a tracking tool. Yes, of course we do. But if you look at it, like my attack is 3-prong: visual first, measurement second, weight third. And if you're visually changing, your measurements in the right areas are going down or up, you know, and those two metrics are hit. Are your clothes fitting different? Do you feel tighter in, like, you know, do you feel a little bit more, you know, when you wake up in the morning, you feel tight? Hold on to those metrics. The scale weight's just the number that we need just to track. That's it. It's nothing. It's not a psychological or what's the word? Like, it's not a representation of the work that you're doing. It's part of the equation of everything we need. as a whole package. So it's like taking it away from that and just flipping it on its head a little bit and going, nobody cares what that is really. It's how you look first. So yeah, that's how I try and approach it.
Yeah, I love that. It's so, so true. I actually had an example that fits that perfectly, Steph, the other day with a client that his weight had gone down a little bit, and then we were up in the expenditure, and he was like, weather's nice, I'm going to go for some like 3 jogs a week instead of doing like the cross trainer or whatever in the gyms. He was like, I want to get out and do a bit of that. And his scale weight went up a little bit. Now, of course, there's a drive of inflammation from going back to doing some running. There's various other things that can, of course, affect scale weight. So I said to him, look, let's hold tight. We're pretty deep in a deficit. We're near the photo shoot. Let's, you know, look at the visuals. And he looked leaner all round. And then the following week, 1.6 kilos came off. So it went up a little bit and then it swished off because he's into the running now. You know, the body's adapted. And it was like, he was so glad that he was just like, I'm just going to stick to this plan. But of course, easily you could look at the scale weight and go, it's not working. And then that could lead to, you know, maybe going off track, of course.
Yeah. And what you just pointed on there is stress.
Yeah.
Stress is the number one killer for fat loss, but it's also the number one killer for you know, some of those kind of bigger drops that, you know, you tend to find that people get quite stressed and then they just like accept the process and then it just drops.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of the way in which our body holds stress is general, you know, water retention, inflammation. You mentioned he's been out on runs, perhaps in hot weather, heat.
Yeah.
You know, just there's so many myriad of variables as to why your weight will fluctuate on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. But if you are constantly holding anxiety and stress in your body at all times, that is going to affect your fat loss and how that generally comes down, and you could be prolonging that process quite considerably. So it's again, it's management of stress. A lot of techniques around the psychological factors will help there, I think, as a coach, to help your client then see more natural drops rather than nothing drop. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So everyone,
I'm sure you both agree that mindset is much more out there as our jobs as coaches now. Like, it's definitely something I delve into sometimes more on a check-in or a call than I would about the actual physique.
Yeah, absolutely. It is for me as well. And I really love it because I found even my interest towards psychology and the mental aspects, like, it amazes me. I'm so interested in that and how to get it stronger, how to deal with struggles and challenges and overcome these, and actually what we can achieve by doing that. Like, I find that, along with the health and fitness journey in whole, like, amazing. Like, it's so enjoyable trying to figure it out. And the good thing about it, we're all in it together, you know, we're all learning, we're all trying to figure, you know, what works and what doesn't. And I think by doing things like this, it helps to just get other people's opinions, and these things can help other people as well.
Yeah, the mindset stuff is like, me and Matt often have conversations. We're like, we love this, like, you know, the evolution anyway, but then when someone comes to you and you can turn that around, you touched on earlier, both of you, that sometimes it's jumping on a call. Like, it is a case of being there as coaches to go, I mean, I wouldn't say potentially it is above and beyond. For me, it's like, you've got to be there, and sometimes a call is needed to delve into things further, but you can have such big changes in mindset by, you know, us being there and having that genuine interest in our clients' evolution.
Yeah, 100%. Behavior change is so personal, you know, and it's like, I think from a coaching perspective, sometimes like you need to go that little bit of an extra mile and really listen and give that client the space to talk about what's going on for them when it's maybe a trickier topic, or it's something that's, you know, it could go both ways. If it's something that's stopping or you're finding challenging going down the way, or even if you're going back up the way and you're putting the weight on.
Yes.
And more often than not, it's not their training's crap and they're having issues with food. It's usually something psychological going on in the background they haven't even focused on yet. And that could be anything. And when you start to pull those things apart, then you can start to go, okay, how do I manage and box put these things into smaller boxes so that the overwhelm can start to kind of settle down a little bit, and then you can start to regain balance and control of whatever's going on. And I often talk about, like, as a coach, it's 90% psychology and it's 10% application. It's so much around mindset and around really understanding what's going on in that client's world to allow them to succeed at whatever goal that's going to be. And if you need to be that listening ear for something that's going on at home for that week to help them get back in the driving seat and taking control, then that's what you need to do for that week. So it's, that's, I think, a huge part of this, to allow people to get to where they need to be.
Yeah. And you touched on there about like off season and that end of the spectrum. Maybe we could talk about, you know, that period where you come away from stage and you reverse out. And Steff and I have spoken about this before on the pod, and Tyler, when you came on, you know, we spoke about how hard that can be, embracing going into an off season. And, you know, as we know in bodybuilding, the reverse out doesn't always go to plan. It's pretty common, you know. Steff, you said about psychological and said there, you know, it can be food as well. And that's, of course, what we would, you know, a lot of reverses out tends to lean on the food and that then being available and what that comes with. How about we sort of delve into how, if someone does go down the rabbit hole of maybe, you know, going down that eating too much binge type behavior, this type of thing, how we would help them through that as coaches?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's a subject that, you know, we could talk about so long for, and we've had experience with this as well, which is awesome. Because I've kind of had the off season after my first show where it was just basically a free for all because I just could not control my eating, and I put on like over a stone in such a short amount of time because I just didn't know what the right way to reverse or what a woman's off season even looked like at that point. So that was due to lack of education, I would say, but then also being so hungry and not knowing how to manage that. I thought when the competition was done, that's it, you know. Then I began to find out that actually after that prep, you then go into the reverse diet, which is setting you up for a better off season. And when you manage the off season to the best of your ability, then you will have a much smoother off season. You're going to feel better in yourself. Because I don't know what it's like for you if you've both done it in the past, but you know, if you do pick out one time after a show, you wake up feeling shit, like you feel so crap, your energy is low, I felt really guilty. And then I kind of looked in the mirror, I looked 5 months pregnant, and I was like, what have I done? And it took me a long time to kind of unravel that and get on top of that and understand the process and what my triggers were. So by going through that, it allows me now to help other people. You know, there might be some triggers, you know, maybe it's not the best idea to get, you know, boxes full of treats or a drawer full of treats after the show if, you know, sweet things is a trigger point for you. Because I'm the same. If I eat, you know, some cake and I've got a full cake in front of me, I will eat that full cake.
It doesn't fill you up either after a show. That's half the battle, isn't it? You could eat and eat and eat, and it's like I feel all right, you know, I want to eat more, and then of course the hunger hormones and everything that plays a part.
Yeah. And I think having a plan post show is just so beneficial. Having someone to keep you on track. Yes, you probably are going to mess up a little bit, you know, and I think allowing yourself that is okay. But you know, getting yourself back on track and realizing that actually I'm doing this for my health as well and my further goals in the future, that by having that mindset, it can really get you through some of the more strugglier times where you maybe want to eat more.
Yeah. Steff, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I love all of that. I love everything you've just said. Something I always talk about with my clients after, well, post show or on the reverse out is there's going to be a lot flying around your mind. That's a really sensitive period of emotions, right? That's like you're in kind of like scary territory there a little bit. You've come away from this huge focus and you're going into now this reverse where if you're doing this for the first time, you've reached new territory in the prep, seeing your body the leanest it's ever been. And now you're going into again new territory coming off the back of a prep putting on weight potentially quite rapidly if like, you know, we're kind of going down the binge side of it.
Yeah.
So like a process I kind of go through is a cognitive distortions process with my clients. So I try to talk to them about what emotional thinking is, first of all, and try and get them to catch things in their mind as they're happening, to try and limit the impact of how terrible they can be, because that everyone's on that line, aren't they? And then some are far left, some are far right in terms of the binging behaviors, in terms of perhaps clinging on to the prep. So you've got people who go eat, and then you've got people who don't want to let go of being lean.
Yeah.
You've got like the two people. And so I talk about this kind of emotional thinking and what that is, and catching those thoughts. And some people are better at it than others. Some people need to really learn this skill, and it is a skill to learn. But that all or nothing mindset is a really big one. That's one of the things I kind of commonly see is from a cognitive distortion point of view, is some people are all or nothing. And that's where we see this binging, out of control eating habits come into play. And then the sort of negative feedback loop of, well, fuck it, I've done it anyway. Excuse my French, I'm on the podcast.
No.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I've done it anyway. There's no turning back. I look like shit anyway. And you can sort of see that negative thought process, you know, loop that starts to come in. Yeah. And that in itself, on top of the binging, is hugely detrimental, because that will then be something we have to unpick. And then we'll find that they might be discounting the positives. Well, look at everything you've just achieved. Well, it's not good enough anymore. I've like blown it. I look like this, and the guilt and the horrible thoughts all kind of start to come in. So yeah, an exercise around that is looking at, well, what kind of thoughts are you having, and putting them down on paper. And once you actually visualize what you're telling yourself, you can see how negative and damaging that can be for your psychology and where you're at. And whilst you're in that mindset, there's no way you're going to get out of it. So we have to sort of do a lot of work around that, and everyone's different. But after a show, there's an element of this with everyone I've worked with. It just depends on also the other things I just mentioned in our last chat about what other emotional stuff is going on in your world, because that, if you're in an unhappy place, will be triggered also, and it will all come to the surface. And then food is a way of controlling a lot of it. So yeah, there's so much there, but a lot of it's cognitive distortions and helping you get out of those patterns of thinking to help you get back on an even keel, to then really enjoy the process of your body and your health and your goals again, your training.
Yeah, like you touched on there, it's almost suddenly as well, you've got that opportunity for people to say, oh, you can come out for a meal now. Oh, you can do this now. Oh, I've brought you this box of chocolates, all of these things. And it might be that in some of the examples you said there, Steff, you get brought a box of chocolates, and I'm the same as you, Tyler. I've got a sweet tooth. So you have a couple, and then easily, you know, suddenly you've had a whole box of chocolates, then you're wanting more. And it's, you know, how do you stop that? And if someone externally is playing a part there and they maybe don't understand bodybuilding, it's like, well, it can be a recipe for that then elongating into this binge type behavior. I mean, have you had any experiences where people have really gone down that rabbit hole of binge eating? Is there anything else that's worth talking about on the pod today where we can try and bring that back?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a couple of people who have really struggled with that over the years. It's quite rare, but when it does happen, again, it definitely is intrinsically linked with past behaviors or something that's happened at some point around food before. So when you see this pattern unfold, it doesn't tend to happen just because they've done a show. Do you know what I mean? It's because there's been some maybe other quite unhealthy behaviors around food that they haven't even realized. And then when they start to talk about it, like I had one girl tell me recently that she's never really actually ever made food or cooked for herself, because before the prep she was in a very long-term relationship where the partner had cooked all the food for them. Okay. So when they came into post-show and they don't have a partner, they've never cooked their own food or don't know really much about it at all, and have also now got this void of partners no longer there, don't have behaviors around food that are healthy yet, haven't established those, have been in a very low body fat for a very long period of time. This is like a recipe of, like, you know, for her. And And then there was other things compound on that as well, which I won't go into, obviously, just from a personal nature. But there's usually, in a situation where it's an extreme case of binge eating, very careful management has to be, or very careful investigation has to go on, to understand how to help that person. And you may, if you're not specifically trained in eating disorder coaching, have to bring another person into that conversation, which is another thing to think about as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Actually, I think, again, our due diligence as coaches is, if it is not our area of speciality, or we can help to a certain degree, but this is exacerbated into something more serious, it is, can we reach out to another professional to help us, because we want to give the best port of call for our client. Of course, Tyler had much experience with binge eating and this type of thing with clients.
I use quite a few different methods to help with this, and I think helping the client understand that food is always going to be there. It isn't going anywhere, and I know that's easier said than when you're in that moment. But yes, you've went through a long prep, and it's mentally challenging, it's physically challenging. You feel very depleted right now. You are going to not feel any better by binge eating. Yes, we do want you to enjoy some food, and a way that you can do this is actually maybe plan a meal out with some friends or family. Take yourself again away from them triggers, whether that be hoarding some food at home, which you would then sit and eat for the full night. It may be, right, let's plan a meal out, let's have a social event, see people that you haven't seen in a long time, and then put in place the reverse diet, because I do find a lot of clients do still want that kind of plan to follow, and actually feel quite lost when they wake up and they don't have a plan. That can sometimes be a recipe for disaster, because they just don't know what to have, and that can then end up in overeating again. So making sure that there's a plan in place that they're going to enjoy, and get them health markers back up, and start to get that feeling of fullness back in the body, so we've got less chance of feeling over hungry to the point where we just want food, and any sort of food. Damage limitation as well.
Yeah, because it is, like we've almost touched on a little bit with like hunger hormones and things, it's very hard to be fully satiated after a prep, because of course you've run a deficit for however long, and you've got to a lean condition. How lean that is will depend on your criteria and your category, of course, but then off the back of that, having that availability. And I always try and lean on things like keeping a bit of food volume there. Like you say, try and choose foods that are going to taste good. Incorporate foods that maybe you haven't had in the prep, but they're not going to, like you say, trigger other foods, and for you to go down that rabbit hole, and try and work with the client to go, what foods would you quite like to include? Let's explore this, but keep maybe some of the prep foods there still that digest well and they do enjoy, and then start to bring it up slowly, because of course it's like, well, the elements of food. And Steff, you touched on going the other way, so trying to hold on to being lean. I've been there as well, and that's that's something we could talk about, because it is like, it's crazy, you going into that, then delving into self-restriction, and maybe you might not be being honest with your coach in either end of this. As coaches, is there certain signs or things that you would look for if someone was going down the self-restriction route, if they're maybe not being completely honest about doing excess cardio and things like this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the goal post show is to try and get your body fat back up to a reasonable level to allow for all of those health markers to improve, for all of your hormones to start leveling out. And we've got evidence to show that it can take some females, up to a year, perhaps a little bit more time post show for everything really to kind of settle down, dependent on how far you've taken that body fat off. For the female who perhaps is holding on, and I've been there as well. I've done both. Done put the 16 kilos on in 4 weeks, and I've done the not let go of my shreds for 5 months after.
I don't care about health.
wondering why like 5 months post show you're still like, I feel like crap, you know.
Yeah.
I think for the signs I'll probably be looking out for, of course, why is weight not increasing? You know, so what's going on? Why are the scales perhaps not moving up? From the visuals, why are we not looking maybe fuller? Is our strength still bottoming out?
Yeah.
So, you know, if strength is down or certainly maintaining for too long, then what's going on there? And then just generally, you again going back to psychology, you can get the perception of the client. You'll know the client very well by now. You should kind of have a pretty good understanding of the type of person that they are. And usually I can tell quite quickly who's the one saying, I cannot wait to get massive after the stage, or, you know, the one who's like, oh, maybe we could do another goal. Maybe we could do another show. Maybe we could do you see what I mean? So you've maybe got like the two different types of person. I've never had a scenario where I've had a level of restriction which has been concerning. Yeah. I've only ever had somebody who's perhaps been a little bit cautious around the gaining too much too quickly, and perhaps even their too quickly is actually still slow. Does that make sense? So you have to almost get them around to thinking that, okay, it's been a wee while now, we can afford to push up. It's going to be okay. We just need to I've used this analogy with you, Sarah, before. Your body needs it, but it's your brain like being pulled along behind. It's like you're like trying to bring your consciousness along with the change of the visual. And that's the problem. That's the thing we need to work on, rather than, because the body wants it. The body wants the body fat, needs to get back up there.
Yeah, like for your categories, guys, like you're bringing the shred. So, you know, if you're figure or above, as it were, it's, you know, if you're getting pretty peeled, like it's not a healthy place to hang out. And you said there, Steff, like 5 months, you're like, why do I feel like shit? I don't think sometimes you realize how shit you feel until you're healthy again, and then you're like, oh my God, I was bad.
And I think you forget it every time. You know, you forget it every time. You go into it, you're like, I'm lean, I'm like, I'm fire, I'm on point, I've got so much energy. No, you don't.
We're not back to normal just yet.
It's masked by that like mindset. Oh.
You are literally gonna love your heavier self. Like, because just going into a squat rack and being able to squat 10 kilos maybe heavier than your stage, it's just, your joints will thank you, your hair, your nails, your skin, how you feel, and your hormones, your sex hormones, like everything will feel rejuvenated. But you don't know that until you're out of it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You spoke about this on the pod last time, didn't you? How much that drives you forward as an athlete, the performance in the gym.
It does, yeah. And I think when I go into an off season, that's really where I focus, because I can't focus on the scales or how I'm looking. And it's really took me quite a long time to get used to being okay with being more fluffy and having extra body fat. And I've actually really started to enjoy that process and actually love it, because I feel so much better in myself. I have more energy through the day, and my strength is flying. Like, I just feel strong, and to be able to go in the gym and, you know, absolutely kill it and just move so much weight, like it's a really nice feeling, because in prep I found myself feeling quite weak. You know, the weights felt so heavy. I was dragging my ass even to get to the gym towards the end of it. And I can remember thinking in prep, I can't wait to feel strong again. So I really use that as a driver. And I think that if anyone does struggle with the off season and gaining some extra body fat, like it's okay, you know. There's so many other things that you can focus on, and it's going to get you to those bigger goals as well, if you can learn to love that part of the process too.
I can hear Steff inside your head going, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm so with you. The thing is, like, you've got to, this whole thing, you've got to remember why you went into it in the first place, because you love the training, you love the feeling of being strong, and like that, all of us women who jump up on stage, like we're strong, fierce women, you know. This is the kind of thing we love to do. And so when you come back into it, we need to harness that mindset again in the off season. It's that I'm strong. I've started, you know, I lift weight. I can put a barbell on my back. I can literally walk into Asda and put 6 bags of shopping on my arm and like storm out like a she boss. Do you know what I mean? It's like these are the sorts of things that are so important to remember, because generally when you look around at the general population, there's not a lot of women who are able to have just that general day-to-day strength that, you know, we have, which we take for granted and we kind of almost overlook because we do these big goals like standing on stage, etc. But the fact that you are building your body now at whatever ages that is, that means that your bone health when you're 75 is going to be, you know, superly more protected. Your general, like, any concerns around heart health or osteoporosis or any, like, you know, liver disease or kidney function or whatever else, you're protecting here and now by the stuff that you're doing in the gym. So it's like taking a longer approach at your goals. Yes, you're doing these short-term bursts to prove something to yourself or do a massive challenge, but the enjoyment of training is giving you so much more for life. And that's like very empowering. I love that. Like, I go into the gym to feel strong and, you know, sexy and empowered, but I go into the gym because I want to feel like I'm taking care of myself for the long term. And so those are things that I hope people will start to think about. You know, when they're coming off the off season. I talk to my clients a lot about this. This isn't just about getting body fat back on. This is about you taking back your health. Yeah. And focusing on that.
Yeah, for sure. I have to remind myself of that at this tricky point in, I'm like 6.5 months into the off season. I'm going to do 18 months plus. And then I'm like, actually, I've just got to that point where I'm like, wow, I get out of bed and I feel quite good. Like, I go to the gym and I can, and then I'm like, oh, and then like even silly things. I don't know about you from past experience, guys, but like having a laugh and, you know, having energy to just laugh till you cry and you know, like immerse in life, because it just go like, I sometimes describe prep as like at the end the stuffing's knocked out of you a bit, and I never want to obviously throw negative shades on the sport per se, but like truly when you look at it and you're at this point, you look back and you think, oh, I was really, you know, digging hard and that was tough. And things like having a bit of banter and having fun, you don't have the energies for it half the time. And then when it comes back, you're like, oh my God, I can make memories and just have a bit of a laugh, you know?
Yeah, massively. I mean, that's life, isn't it? It's like, you know, these goals are short term for a reason, because you've got to, not all of us can be like full-time IFBB pros.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? It's true.
We're doing this as a hobby at the end of the day. You're doing this as something that adds to your life. It isn't your full life. It's so you've got to come back to that balance and actually having that time, getting to those points where I feel good in my own skin. I feel all right. I've managed to come off the back of something as extreme as that and come back into, you know, whatever normal mode looks like for you. So yeah, I think that's great, Sarah. It's like, and then you're at the point, no doubt, where you're going, oh my God, do I really want to do this again?
I'm like, oh, and like you mentioned there, like IFBB Pro as a full-time job. And I do have this conversation with people, you know, maybe they've competed 1 or 2 times and people listening would have. And then it's like, if I go back into a prep, what are my sights set on? And then it becomes more of like an actual, you've done your first time. So that's when there's no expectations. You're competing, you know, you can enjoy it. Then you want to get better. You mentioned a client earlier, Tyler, because you put yourself on this, well, I've got to look better this time. And of course, we want to drive for that. Then it's like, do I want to do this again? And what's that risk reward? What do I need to, you know, forego per se to do a prep? And then, like you say, Steff, it's like, wow, I'm really happy now. Like, do I dig myself into a ground another time? And it's based on that, you know, what are you heading for? Tyler, are you going back to stage? What's your plans moving forward?
Yeah, so I'm quite similar to you, Sarah, at this point. Competed last year and decided that the look that I want to bring to the stage next is going to require quite a lot more muscle mass, which I'm happy with. I really like the look of that, and that's something that I inspire to get after. So I'm taking at least a year off season. I'm now at 7 months. I will probably reassess in January, see how I'm sitting. And then if I need to, I'm more than happy to then take longer in off season, or if I feel like I've added the muscle required for that look I'm going towards, then compete next year. But as you know, as a female, it takes so long for us to add that muscle. But I think what I'm enjoying as well at this point, I've never actually taken more than 6 months in an off season, and it's given me more time. You know, I'm buying a house this year. I've got a few things going on. I'm studying a degree, and it's quite nice to work in different areas as well, while still training towards my goals and feeling good about that. So bodybuilding still holds a very high place in you know, day-to-day life, but actually there's also other things that I can also concentrate on too. So that's where I'm at the moment. And I'm now 18 kilograms above my stage weight. Body composition, I would say I'm really happy with. Some clear gains, you know, I'm making shapes in the places that I wanted to. My shoulders are growing, glutes, quads, you know, overall muscle I needed to add. I think I will need to mini cut in the next kind of 6 to 8 weeks just to dial things back down, and I'll probably do a more I'll probably approach that quite strict and actually do quite a big blast with that, because I don't want to take any longer out of my off season. So I would like to bring that down quite quickly and just go, you know, 100% in with a mini cut. I just find for me that's going to work better rather than trying to do that over a longer period when I don't need to. That's not how I work best. And then go into another off season after that.
I love that. I actually, mini cuts, I was having this conversation with Matt the other day. I didn't realize when they first sort of came out, as it were. I'm sure it started on Instagram or something like that, but they were like 2 to 3 weeks and go in like 2 to 3 weeks, really, really hard. And then there's more that are like maybe 4, 5, 6, up to maybe 8 weeks. But I guess pushing on that any longer, like you say, you then come out of the growth phase and it's maybe not ideal. Also responding to our extreme personality, sometimes it's like, I'm gonna go all in for however long and just really push it and then get back to growing.
Yeah, being quite aggressive with it. And I don't think if you're that kind of mentality type, I don't think there's a problem with that. I see it as a huge strength when used correctly and understanding it. But I do think that aggressive approach for me at this point this year will be quite good. I've not done it before, so I'll be keeping you updated, because I'm sure you'll be hitting that at some point this year too.
Yeah, that sounds super cool. Yeah, I'm in talks with my coaches to, at the moment he's happy, but it's like that could be on the horizon. And I've had conversations as to if I was going to do one, I'd want to just go, yeah, pretty balls to the wall and do it for a short space of time and then get back to growing. Steff, I haven't spoken to you for ages about, are you going to compete again? Or are you not sure? Or what's your plan?
Well, I mean, running a federation is a whole other ballgame. So, you know, I'm super lucky to have competed for God knows how long, and now on the flip side with WMBF. And so I'm all in with building out this phenomenal federation, which I love. Will I compete again? Yes, is the answer to the question. I'm looking at next year being my next stage. That's kind of where I'm at. I had breast augmentation surgery in January. So yeah, so I was like, this is great, because now it gives me a little bit of time to come back, bring all my upper body strength back to where it is, which is now pretty much there. And I've just locked into a 3-month cut for a photo shoot, and I'm going to approach it exactly as a prep. So this is the first proper strategic cutting process I've done since 2019. So exciting. I'm super excited. Yeah, because I'm going to probably pull off around, my aim is about 5 kilos. Yeah. So, which will be pretty dramatic for me. So I'll probably pull that off, see what I'm looking like, feel that kind of process of the strictness and the, you know, application side of it again, just to warm up a wee bit to the idea of that again next year. It's a good amount for me just now, and I can do that in amongst, you know, all my organization for the Fed and my own work, of course. Yeah. And then a really bougie photo shoot, which I can't wait for. Wow. That's me.
Well. Like, when you do something like that, like with clients, you know, when you do a photo shoot prep, or like you can do a mini type prep setup to see if someone even if someone can do that for 3 months, it gives them a real good insight, doesn't it, into like, do you actually want to do this for maybe 8 to 10 months?
Yeah, totally. And I'm doing this as a bit of an experimentation, like case study for my clients as well. So like, I really want to I've put a few people through a photo shoot prep, and I love that. I love doing the photo shoot prep because I think I've got a great connection, you probably have as well, Sarah, but with quite a few different photographers in the UK, fitness-based photographers, and I like their work. And I think what you get from that, from a confidence perspective, a snapshot in time of your hard work, which doesn't have the pressure of judging you, all of that is so great for anyone who's put themselves through a body transformation or really emphasize, like, whether it's body fat or muscle gain, whatever that is. I think it's a great thing to do anyway, regardless of whether you're prepping or not, just for that thing for you. It's not for anyone else, it's just for you. And it's really, really good. So yeah, doing this for my clients, for me also, to give myself a little bit of like, I can still do this.
This is what it's gonna be like. Love that.
So,
oh, there's been such a good episode. Like, this is what I hoped it would be, because of course, coming together with experience ourselves, but we're working with clients, and just being able to empower people around us and share the good vibes of what we can achieve. So thank you so much, girls. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
And of course, I'll put your Instagram handles in the description below, so if anyone wants to share on their stories or tag us or reach out to either of you, then I'm sure your messages will be open.
They sure will.
For sure.
Thank you, girls. I'll speak to you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.